I always hope people will open themselves up to experience the film the way that me and my cast and crew had experienced ourselves. So each film, I have a different experience. And when I work on the film, I always hope to capture that emotions that I felt. And so the audience is to bring them to where we were and where these characters were. I went to quite a few screenings, and so far it feels like many did get to where we were, and I'm so happy about that. I have to say that it's very nerve-wracking for me because I have a processing, how my brain works is to take in way too much information. So I will be watching everyone's body language all around me, and I will listen to people's reactions. Also, I can feel people's energy, and it's both scary because there are areas go, oh, are we losing them or are they with us? But then when the room did catch the waves of emotions, and then I feel it even more than I experience it myself. So pleasure and pain in the same coin, same experience. I got a call from Amberlin, and who told me what the book is about. I never read it before, and they want me to adapt it. I said no at first because I didn't know Shakespeare. That I'm not an expert on Shakespeare. I'm not sure I could do a period piece. I'm not a mother, so how can I, tell stories about a mother losing a child? So I just said no. But then I met Paul Mescal a few hours later for the first time, not knowing who he was, but it just felt like maybe he could play young Shakespeare. I just had a feeling, and so when I asked him, would you ever consider playing young Shakespeare? And he said, is it Hamnet? Because he's read the book, and he said, you have to read the book. Trust me, it's not what you think it is. Only later find out that Maggie O'Farrell's favorite director is Wong Kar-wai, who is also my favorite director. So the way she writes like almost as if I've edited the film. It's with the exact same heartbeat. As soon as I read the book, I knew I could give it a go. I didn't know I could capture the multitude of humanity that she's contained in her book, and how archetypal everything is. I didn't know I could be able to translate that onto the screen. A lot has to change in you. It's going to be a difficult process, but the heart is exactly the same rhythm as mine. So from there, I knew I could go somewhere with it. Well, I started by asking her to do it with me. I said, if you don't do it, then I won't do it. She said, I never wrote a screenplay before. I was like, well, yes or no, just. So she said, fine, I'll do it. And the first thing that she did was to make the book chronological, to make the book chronological, because the book, as you know, happens in one day, on the day of Hamnet's death, and it flashes back to at least part one, right? And then part two deals with the aftermath. And I knew the flashback would, in this case, that much flashback's going to slow down the momentum of the film. So she did one pass that's chronological. And then I took that pass and distilled it. And then I would leave her this long voice note describing scenes that I need for the film. And she will come back with a version of that scene, and I will revise it. So it was a very collaborative process all the way to the end of filming, because I would come up with new things as we shoot. And then I would send her another voice note, and she will send me a scene. Well, there's a lot of William Shakespeare in this that's not in the book. He was a much smaller role. And then also the play. In the book, we only have that very beginning, sort of ends with "Remember Me." And then we knew we needed more. Because when you have a line like "Remember Me," and you end the novel on that line, and then you have that blank space after that line. That blank space says so much more. And then when you look at that, you go, how am I going to, if you just have an actor say, "Remember me," and cut to black, it's not the same. And so in order to capture the feeling that last page contained, we knew we had to extend Hamlet for another 20 minutes to get to the end, to get to rest is silence, right? So, yeah, Maggie understood very well. And it was really fun to dig into Hamlet to see what scene tells the story we want to tell about love and death, right? About the cycle of life. Discovering lines that I didn't think was a big deal compared to be or not to be, but really to me now represents Hamlet, is the line of all living things must die, pathing through nature to eternity. It's like, whoa, you know, that, so for us to go into Hamlet and pick out the right scenes and then plant the scenes and then look at the rest of the early on the film. How do we plant little moment? Like Hamnet wants to be a sword, you know, we need a scene where he talks about he wants to be one of the players, the one with the sword. And there's going to be a big sword fight because we knew the last scene of Hamlet is going to be in the film. So then we can start planting these little moments earlier on, how all the world is the stage, right? So how do you bring the humanity from the stage to real life in the film? It's a nice, it's like Easter eggs everywhere. I read the book, I said, call Jessie Buckley's agent. That's it. I was no anyone else in mind. It was very clear to me. Again, it's hard to tell, you know, that when I met Paul, I just had a feeling it's him. When I saw a cowboy working and I kind of go, I feel like there's a film with you, you know, for the writer. It's really hard to explain. I always feel like stories are not something that we can control. They choose us as much as we choose them. I think in indigenous cultures, storytellers understood that, you know, our shamans, that the way we look at stories is like it's out there somewhere. It exists, past, present, future. And our job is actually to do the internal work, like whenever you're ready to receive a story and to channel that into the world, is because something else much bigger than you have decided the world needs this story, and you have done your own inner work to be ready to steer it into the world. And I think the intuition that I feel for Jessie and Paul is because I think they, as actors, you know, let's say Jessie has gone through things in her own life that she's preparing, and she will tell you that, to lead to be able to channel this character through. And it wasn't just say, oh, Jessie Buckley, that's it, we met and we spent time together. And it's very clear she's desperate to go on an inner journey through this character because she's ready. She's been preparing for it, and so was I. And that's why it's hard to explain, because it chose us. We were just here answering the call. That's how it feels like. I don't think I necessarily help her prepare in the traditional way. Like I said earlier, is a journey she is been wanting to go on, right? So I think the way she described it is that she feels this intense urge to create. And it's not just creating for the character. She just created all day long in prep, while shooting, everything, music, drawing, painting, fever writing, dream work. She just feel like she needed to create. And then that, to allow her to swim in that, to give her the total freedom, and to let the content of that guide the film. Like one example is the funeral of the falcon came from her fever dream. She improvised the entire thing, which that then later on led to an important moment when Hamnet is in limbo, you know, and he does the same thing, looking up, whistling to the hawk. That came from her fever dream. So when the entire production is guided by that, I just knew when it's time to film Hamnet's death, she has led us there. she's gotten us there. She's done all the work. She's ready to go. And I think the all I can do at that point are two things. One is I made sure the ecosystem, the people who came on this film, everyone from a PA to a makeup artist, to our DP, and to the other actors, everyone is willing to take off their masks. They know coming into this space, their own grief, their own pain, the things they go through in their lives are completely allowed coming into this ecosystem and encouraged to create from that space. And so by then, Jesse, Jacoby, everyone knows the people around them is coming in with their own. They're not these actors, they're not the only one who are asked to take off the mask. So that helped. And the other thing is making sure we open and close the work every day. So we'll close the work on difficult days by cast and crew dancing together. So it's a very ancient tradition that warriors come back from battle. You beat drums and you dance around the fire to get all that tension out of your body. One of our producers, Steven Spielberg, he's pretty good at working with children. So he gave me some tips at the beginning with the ET audition. He's like, this is what I did, and if you want to try. And I tried that on Jacoby. And what I realized is in that moment is that he is brave enough and is to be completely present at all time. And his little body can handle whatever emotions come through and isn't afraid to just show you. And that's something you can't teach or train. And when you're working with children, that's what you want. Because they already are like that, but some, unfortunately, were trained to kind of think about what they should do too early. And I wanted to make sure Jacoby didn't have those barriers, and he didn't. But he also just naturally a lot older than his age, and that also really helped. Very last minute, it was about a week before we were going to shoot the scene, and there were some scheduling issues with the person we had before, and we just thought, wow, we need to find a new actor for Hamlet. And my producing partner Nick said to me, what about Noah Jube? I was like, well, what about Noah? He's not going to do it. It's such a tiny, small role, and we don't know where he is. And his mom was like, I think he literally has this week off. No. And then Noah just flew in. Fang had just wrapped the film, straight to our set, and his first scene was the scene where he can't get his line right. The Paul screams at him, because he really didn't know his lines. He just showed up and did it. So again, when you start to catch the wave, like a surfer, when you catch the wave, then everything starts to fall into places. You just have to stay open, and when there's an obstacle, and if you stay open, then listen to what somebody on your set will say something to you, and then suddenly, whoa, the gifts are coming. I think the tension that I ask my actors to hold, which is to exist somewhere between consciousness and unconsciousness, right? Because we do a lot of dream work, and then when you're present, you're in your body, which is your subconscious, right? So you have the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And I'm asking them to be somewhere in the middle all the time. That's a very uncomfortable place to be, because unconscious means unknown. So it's to not know, to come to work every day and not knowing. And I also need to be in that place, which means as the captain of the ship, I also need to, half of the time, not know where the ship is headed. And I don't create stories, my stories aren't linear, they're spiral. So when you tell stories in a spiral manner, you don't decide when to stop. It will tell you when to stop. And wherever that is on the spiral is your ending. It doesn't have an ending like that, a linear ending like that. So most of the time, other than Eternals, I didn't have an ending going into making a film. And the scene, the final 5 minutes with everyone reaching out for Hamlet, and also seeing little Hamnet on stage, was not in the script, was not there until 4 days before we wrapped production. And it came to me with the help of Jesse sending me Max Richter's On the Nature of Daylight. So that's hard, you know, and you have to bear that on your own. You don't want to tell your entire production that you don't know, you don't have an ending 4 days before. And Jessie knew, she felt it. It's like, this is not, we don't have an ending. We filmed the ending, it didn't quite land. So the catharsis, Jessie and I went through our own catharsis 4 days before the film wrapped of where do we go? We're lost. We're so lost, just like Agnes, so lost. And then On the Nature of Daylight, just like Hamlet, became a catalyst for Jessie and I to have an emotional catharsis, and the ending presented itself to us. It came to me on the car ride to work, and I remember I was going through a personal loss. I was going through a breakup at the time, and the music came. I was listening to the song, and I find myself, it's raining, you know, it's London, and I find myself reaching my hand out to try to touch the raindrops on the outside of the, and crying, and looking at my hand, and then why am I reaching out at the rain? Because when you are about to lose love, and it's so incredibly scary, you can't let go, because you believe in separation, right? You believe in the illusion of separation. And you're reaching for the rain because there's something much bigger, like nature. Nature is oneness, and we're part of nature, but at some point we were told, actually you could lose love. We are separated. You know, you start to have this illusion of separation. I think in that moment, I wanted to reach for that oneness, so I can believe in my body, love doesn't die, it just transforms, so I can survive my loss of love. And in that moment, realizing for Hamlet to let go in that last moment, to come to a line that's, the rest is silence. He's talking about peace, no fear of dying, because when the dissolution of the separation happens, right? When the illusion of separation is dissolved, then that young man suddenly has no fear of letting go. And so, but to do that, he needed the strength of the rest of the audience to remind him that he's not alone, that they're all one. And so then that idea came about. You know, so Jessie was not sleeping all night, and it was that song that gave her the feeling she needed. That's why she sent it to me. And I find this way of creating, it helps me to stand by my work because it came out of my own body, moment by moment. It's not something I imagined in my office, 6 months ago. Because the rawest human truth for me always exists in the present moment. And that is a very uncomfortable feeling. We want to control and plan. It's to be present as possible, and to allow our body to feel all the emotions that a human being goes through in a lifetime, and be there with those emotions, and trust that we have the alchemical power of transforming these feelings, no matter how painful they are, into amazing compost that is going to bring new life into yourself. That's not just what William Shakespeare has. All of us has that. I think Shakespeare is someone who isn't afraid to descend into himself and create from his shadow place. I think you can see in his characters, many of them are archetypes that's in his own shadows. And the reason why it's so timeless and it's been adapted into everything from My Own Private Idaho to Lion King is because it isn't afraid of the darkness. It celebrates the night equally as the day. And I think that's why Jesse always called him the ultimate humanist. We like looking at him as a mirror, his work, because it gives us the entire spectrum of who we are as human beings instead of only giving us one chunk because the other stuff might be uncomfortable. I think that's why his work is so timeless. Love doesn't die, it transforms. And keep your heart open. And I do think storytelling is important and communal experience, getting together and seeing our own humanity reflected on the screen and experiencing that journey together is really vital for our society. And making this film made me realize the work that we do is actually sacred. And I used to kind of wonder, really, it's just making a film. But yeah, it definitely makes me feel more purposeful in life. It's because of the process of making this film. And then going to theaters, sitting with audiences and experiencing it. And I get new intellectually is important, but I definitely, thanks to William Shakespeare, who had done it, a long time ago really well, I think to get just a glimpse of his spirit and his soul and his passion and his pain makes me want to be a better storyteller for the world.